Hey team, welcome back to another episode of the Strength Game Podcast. I'm your host, Nick O'Brien, and this is episode number 106. The Strength Game is a weekly podcast dedicated to discussing all things physical culture with the coaches, athletes, iron enthusiasts, and experts deeply embedded in the strength game on both sides of the profession, both as coaches and as competitive athletes. I want to thank everyone who has subscribed to the show, who has liked, rated, reviewed, and commented. Your support allows us to continue to bring on expert guests and highlight more individuals in the strength game, just like our guest today. I also want to thank our sponsors. Samson Equipment provides first-class weight rooms and has earned an exceptional reputation of providing the finest quality, design, and customer service. Being a direct manufacturer, the team at Samson brings full customization capabilities and not only branding, but in custom equipment needed to execute your next project. From racks, barbells, and plates to dumbbells, benches, flooring, storage, and much more, Samson equipment is durable and made to order from premium grade materials, all built from scratch, start to finish. Samson equipment provides professional weight room solutions for all your strength and conditioning needs. See the Samson standard for yourself and learn more at samsonequipment.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Cerberus Strength. Owned and operated by active lifters, Cerberus is trusted by the top strength sport athletes and lifters in the world. Cerberus's wide range of products are made by athletes for athletes, truly living up to its moniker, made by the strong for the strong. If you're in the market for the highest quality strength conditioning gear and equipment, be sure to use promo code STRENGTH_game at checkout to receive 10% off your next order at cerberusstrength.com. Also want to thank our sponsor, Sport Kilt. The kilt is a tradition dating back centuries. Worn by nobles, military, and fashionistas, the kilt has been through it all, at times banned, at other times celebrated. For over 25 years, Sport Kilt has been striving to perfect their version of the Scottish classic to create the ultimate garment of fashion and function. Brave, bold, and proud is stitched in every kilt. Sport Kilt offers a wide range of universal and clan tartans, as well as custom sport kilts and an excellent selection of accessories and apparel to complement the kilt wearer. Check out the full line of kilts and join the kilt life at sportkilt.com, and be sure to use promo code TSG on your next order to save. And in this week's episode, I am joined by Scott Caulfield. Scott is the director of strength and conditioning at Norwich University. Joining Vermont's military college in 2021, he is their first director of strength and conditioning in university history. Caulfield has been in the strength and conditioning profession for over 30 years and has coached at nearly every level from the private sector, college, professional level, and even NSCA Headquarters. Caulfield was the coaching, education manager, and head strength and conditioning coach at the National Strength and Conditioning Association Headquarters in Colorado Springs for nearly 11 years. During that time, he also served as the head strength coach for Colorado College's men's hockey team from 2011 to 2015 and the women's soccer team from 2011 to 2013. Much of Caulfield's work with the NSCA was centered around training other coaches and interacting with the many different high schools, collegiate, professional, and international teams, coaches, and tactical units that came to the headquarters to train, learn, and develop. Just prior to joining Norwich, he rejoined the Colorado College staff for his second stint as the director of strength conditioning, working with the school's two Division I programs, men's hockey and women's soccer. Caulfield is no stranger to Norwich. He got his start training the then Club Norwich University men's rugby team from 2003 to 2006. He worked in the private sector as the fitness director for First In Fitness from 2001 to 2007, as well as the American Basketball Association's Vermont Frost Heaves as their head strength coach and director of camps from 2006 to 2008, where they won back-to-back ABA championship titles. From there, he became the director of sports performance at River Valley Club and then serving as an assistant strength coach at Dartmouth College for 5 and 4 years, respectively, before joining the NSCA staff. Caulfield is a respected speaker and lecturer, having lectured on the national and international circuit for over a decade. He's been an adjunct instructor at both Norwich University and the University of Colorado, Colorado Springs. He's the current NSCA Vermont State Director, in addition to serving previously from 2008 to 2011. Caulfield also holds the role of Vice President of the NSCA Foundation. It was the former host of the NSCA Coaching Podcast for 3 seasons, as well as been featured on numerous others. Caulfield is also a veteran, serving from the Navy from 1991 to 1995, where he was an aircraft director on board the USS Guam. He is also an active firefighter and the true definition of a strength athlete, advocate, and enthusiast. He fell in love with training before the start of his coaching career, and Coach Caulfield, aka Dr. Jacked, continues to stay active in his spare time training, lifting, and getting on the slopes as an avid skier. I'm excited to have him on the show today. So with all that said, let's get in the game with Coach Scott Caulfield. What's going on, everybody? Today I'm stoked to have Dr. Jack, Coach Scott Caulfield on the show today. How are you doing today, Coach?
Good, man. Thanks for having me on. Appreciate the opportunity.
I'm excited about this. I've been wanting to get you on for a while, and like I said before, recording your intro was lengthy, and I know there's so many things that we could kind of talk about today, and I'm sure once we get into it, we're kind of veer the conversation wherever it goes. But really, before we get everything going, I really want to kind of get to the inception of how you got into the strength game and lifting. Like, kind of talk about how you got introduced to training, kind of the sports you played growing up, and kind of leading into what you do nowadays to stay active and continue to train.
Yeah, it's been a good run. I feel like it's been a long time. I'm one of those guys now that can tell some of my athletes that I've been lifting longer than they've been alive, which is always fun. It also makes you feel exceptionally old too. But I mean, I played basketball and soccer growing up, like high school wise. And basketball was really my sport for sure. So that was kind of what I stuck with. Played in college a little bit, but it was really through that. And the first year I went to college was a junior college in Vermont. And it was old school, right? It was late 80s. That was the YMCA universal machine with the 10 stations all the way around. And we did one station, and it really didn't like catch at that point. But fast forward to my second year in college, I decided I was way too close to home. I think a lot of kids that grow up in Vermont are like, we got to get out of here. And then you come full circle now and you're like, I got to get back there. And so I actually went to school in Florida my second year. And I was like, I got to get out of here. I'd worked at a basketball camp in the summer, met some guys that went to this college in Florida called St. Leo. And so I went down there, and it's a little ironic because I went there to go to college, and I really didn't go to class much. So I was a terrible student, but I got into a fraternity, Tau Kappa Epsilon, and the guys that I met in there were into lifting big time. And so I really kickstarted my like passion and interest in lifting. And then again, terrible student. So I failed out of college, and my mom was like, well, you should join the military, because unless you want to live here with me in rural Vermont and work, at construction or something, I was like, I'm out of here. So I joined the military, and that really, allowed me. At the time, I had that basis of kind of training knowledge, and I just, continued with it. So I was working out all the time. The guys on my ship wanted me to help them work out. So like I'm programming for them. I'm seeing now too, playing a lot of pickup hoops on the ship and on different bases. And when we're overseas, we had an air department team, and we got to play a lot of different bases in other countries. So it was super fun. But I started seeing the correlation between lifting and performance in sport for myself. And that's where it really started clicking. So, again, those 4 years I lived on the ship, was an amphibious assault ship. So we carried helicopters and Marines. Great time. I loved, at the time I didn't realize how much it was going to impact me over the course of my life, right? Just young, you don't know much, but two med cruises, as we call it. I've seen 20 something different countries, places that, most people are never need to go in their life. So it was such a cool opportunity, and it really stimulated that, really to keep going with the college, or to get back to college and get a degree. And so I went in, got out, went for physical education, and that was where I was thinking along the lines of being a PE teacher or something like that. But as that was kind of formulating, I was getting more interested in exercise science. And that, in this time, I graduated my undergrad in 2000, and I really still didn't know that like strength and conditioning was as much of an opportunity as it was. So I got out of college, out of undergrad, and just kind of worked part-time in a gym that I had worked at pre-military as well. And was just, kind of still going. And I worked my way up the ranks, became a personal trainer. I became a fitness director. But somewhere along the lines, someone had said, well, if you want to work with athletes, you got to check out this CSCS certification, this organization called the NSCA. So that led me to just trying to, Google and find out as much info as I could about the NSCA. And that led me to do the NSCA Vermont, the state director program, connected with our state director, who was a guy named Paul Goodman at the time. And it kind of really just steamrolled from there. So got to know him, wanted to volunteer and help with him. And once I realized that this athlete training thing was a real deal, like I was putting all the eggs in that basket. All right, how can I make this a thing? And again, I think, the NSCA at the local level really helped me a lot. We had some great guys, Paul and this professor, Declan Connolly, who's since passed, but we had some really great state level involvement. And, long story short, and he's still there, when Paul left Vermont to take the job with the Chicago Blackhawks, pretty good run, 3 Stanley Cups later, he's still there. He was like, hey, they asked me if I knew anybody that was interested in, running the state director thing. Would you want to do it? And so I was like, I don't know, what do you do? And the long story short, took that over. And that just got me more involved with NSCA, and just meeting more people and networking and seeing, learning more about strength and conditioning. So again, that, similarly getting more involved, or, being more exposed to different people and programs, the NSCA, somewhere around those early years, I connected with Ron McKeefery, started following people like Joe Ken, and then just kept going to bigger events, went to, a symposium, went to a national, went out to Colorado Springs, I think it was a speed training or speed agility clinic they had out there, and was like, wow, Colorado's amazing. This facility's awesome. At the time I was in a position in my career where I could pick up and go. So I kind of put some feelers out. And again, long story short, in 2011 or late 2010, someone had reached out from NSCA headquarters, said, hey, there's some positions opening, if you're still interested, throw your name in. And, long story short, I got a job in January 2011, to go to NSCA headquarters. And, since that time, I had moved out of central Vermont. I was living in the Hanover, New Hampshire area. I started volunteering at Dartmouth College with football, and that snowballed into working with men's and women's swimming. Also had been working with their rugby program, which is very well known and has a high level. They've won a bunch of championships and always top of the Ivy League. So it was just a really cool experience at Dartmouth that snowballed, into this opportunity at the NSCA headquarters. And then full disclosure, I got to NSCA headquarters and I was sitting in a cube on the second floor most of my days, and only getting to coach in the weight room a few hours a week. And I was like thinking, what did you do? Like, I can't believe I just, pulled up chalks and moved to Colorado. I don't know anybody. And now I'm coaching like 3 hours a week. But, I saw the bigger picture. One of the reasons I wanted to go work at the NSCA was I felt strongly that that we could do better, that they could do more. I heard people complain about their membership not being worth anything. I at times had thought about letting my membership lapse because I didn't see the benefit in some of the, or I didn't see the membership benefits that I thought you should get. So I really thought, you know what? You go try and make a difference, or you can keep complaining, right? And so I think, a mentor of mine always used to say, we like problem solvers, not problem pointer outers. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to take this chance. And again, as things happen, like 6 months after I had been there, I got promoted to the interim performance-centered manager, I think was my first title, which was basically overseeing the weight room. And then that really evolved over the next few years. And I almost hit 10 years. It was a little over 9 that I spent at NSCA headquarters. My job changed completely while I was there. I did a lot of what we called coaching education. And John Jost, who was on the NSCA board of directors in those early years, he and Boyd Epley were really big on, hey, look, you need to not be here at the headquarters stuck in Colorado Springs so much. Like, you need to be out at all these events. You need to be the liaison between the headquarters and college, professional, and high school strength coaches, because you do it, you are in here every day. You're now working with all our teams, our athletes that are here. You are an actual full-time strength and conditioning coach. Like, we need to get you out and let people know, hey, you got an issue, you got a gripe, you got anything you want to talk about, this is the guy to reach out to. And I hesitated at first because I'm like, I'm a strength coach. I know what I'm good at, or I feel like I know what I'm good at, and that's being in the weight room with athletes. And getting me out to Major League Baseball winter meetings or the NBA Combine, or anything to do with, dealing with high level coaches was a little scary. But it was also the best part of the job, and it was the best part that came out of that position. So it was such a great opportunity to meet people and network and really try and draw back the strength and conditioning coaches in college. And I feel like we really did a really good job of that during that time.
No, I think there's been a huge change, like from the NSCA back from like when I even joined, to realize that like what you guys are trying to able to do. And I know you're still super big into it, still being the Vermont director, like state director, and still being part of like vice president of the NSCA Foundation. So you're still tied into it like deeply. And I think it's kind of the fruition, like, and the fruits of your labor has started to like develop more and more, and people kind of put a lot more trust in the NSCA membership, and really value what the certifications provide. And you guys have been able to branch out. And I think, to your point, exactly like you said, it's super counterintuitive because strength coaches love being in the weight room. And if there's no windows and you can lock the door and play whatever music you want, and there would just be an endless line of athletes coming in, I think most of us would be really content with that. But at a certain point of time, you can make an even bigger impact on not only the athletes that are coming in that you might not see directly, but you can make a bigger impact on them, an organization, a team, a program, a university, when you're experienced enough to kind of step out and bring resources back, bring information back that can be more kind of strategic changes versus like just tactical ones where you're in the day to day. So no, that's cool. And it's awesome to see like just the whole development from being like getting into high school, like getting kicked out of school, and then going to the military, but using all that experience to like find a love for training and then develop into what your career is nowadays too. I wanted to kind of pivot over to this because now you've kind of come back to be able to not only let one career and impact the next career, but now they're kind of blended. Because in your current position, you're at a senior military college at Norwich University, and you're able to kind of use some of your military experience to also coach and help what could be some future officers. How's that relationship? And like kind of speak on what the university kind of does, like versus maybe some service academies or normal like Division III schools, and then how your kind of role and position is different since you do come from a place of military experience yourself.
Yeah, and I will say too, one other kind of just cool thing about that is being connected to guys that I was in the military with on Facebook or whatnot still like some of them reach out now and they're like, man, they're like, you're doing exactly what you said you were gonna do like 30 years ago. Like you did it, man. Like you and I don't remember ever like planning that was my career, but I was training the guys and doing stuff fitness related with a lot of the guys in my department and my friend. And so it's funny, and they're like, you did it, man. Like you did what you said you were gonna do this whole time. That's been kind of cool. But yeah, Norwich is one of the 6 senior military colleges. So we're the oldest private military college in the United States and the birthplace of ROTC. So a lot of history, a lot, which can be good and bad, right? We know the military loves to do things historically and stick to things historically. But it's been the perfect storm. Like being a veteran here, obviously is a really neat experience because the military is such a integral part of our daily life. Probably Army makes up the biggest group of our, Corps of Cadets and the amount of people that commission into the military every year in the Army. But it's cool because, I have different pictures or different awards and different things hanging. And so the athletes and the Corps of Cadets students will see stuff. I teach a couple classes, so I got roped in as an adjunct pretty quick. So um, last year I taught one regular course each semester. This year I teach the same one in the fall, and I'm just doing a lab in the spring. So I've been integrated into health and human performance as that department. And now, again, with the H2F and all the work that the military is doing, bringing subject matter experts in to help advise and kind of um, oversee good training. There we're the Corps of Cadets side, our commandant, and all of our company mentors who are like retired E8, E9 folks that work with the cadets on a daily basis. They're all now roping me into trying to help educate what we call our MFTs. So we're, at the regimental levels, kind of highest level. So I'm doing some training courses, basically like my own kind of level one, for lack of a better word. It's a 1 day course. We hit the basics and are really just trying to teach them proper training. So the kids, the athletes think it's really cool that I was in the military and will ask me about it, ask me different things and see the connections. So that's been awesome. Obviously, the Navy and Marine Corps kids, I have a little bit more to be able to chat about, knowing a little bit more, but it's been great. People that follow me on social media saw in this fall, one of my students, and she was an intern for us. She asked me to do her first salute for her. So I went down to Virginia, her family farm, got to break out, well, had to buy a new uniform because I never would have fit into the old one from the 90s. But I got to put on the uniform again, do a first salute for her. Coolest experience of my career, hands down in any aspect, was being able to do that. And again, for your listeners that might not know, when an officer commissions into the military and they do their oath, they typically have a enlisted person who's made an impact on their training, be the person that does their first salute. And then it's also called the silver dollar salute, and they'll hand a silver dollar to the enlisted person. And so it was just cool. She asked me to do that for her. And because she was an exercise science student and had interned with us and is now commissioning the Army, just totally unreal, experience and super cool. And obviously all of our athletes see stuff like that and see the picture I have hanging in my office of it, saw it on social media. That helps with the credibility. It helps with our program buy-in, helps all of the above. It's definitely an interesting world in the senior military college because and I joke too here, our physical fitness is one of our guiding values at Norwich. So, what other colleges have fitness written into their core values? Not many that I know of. And so here I joke that we really have to pull the pull the chains back on these people more often than we're having to push the envelope. It's like we're trying to get them to do stuff, do it smarter and and better ways, and then not as much for the most part. But it's been great. Again, our Ranger company is a specialty company that it's not an athletics program, but I took over working with them this semester. We did some pre-testing. We're gonna do some post-testing. I've been doing their program for them. Hopefully gonna write up a little paper maybe or something on that. And then I have one full-time assistant, and we split the rest of the varsity athletic teams. It's interesting. Tell people we have everything we need, just not everything we want, right? So we got a small facility, and we do the best to maximize our time and our impact by keeping it open as long as possible, and getting as many athletes in. But I would say we've had incredible buy-in, right? I've probably been the most supported strength and conditioning coach here. They changed the position to get me here, and I think that making that investment in the position in my role, showed that they were serious, the school was serious about it, and that they were going to make these changes. And now, we'll get the facilities eventually. I'm working on redoing our student gym this summer. And it's a Band-Aid. Honestly, it's our fitness facilities, ironically, are not what you would think they should be at a senior military college, and B, a place in rural Vermont where there's not a lot else to do. So we're gonna renovate one gym this year, and I think our varsity athletics program and health and human performance, we're working on a kind of holistic, almost H2F, model type facility that'll be a few years down the road. So I think it was the perfect storm to come here. I think it helped. I hired an alumni who was on our women's national championship hockey team from 2018. She's been a huge asset, first female we've ever had in a strength and conditioning role here. And so, all of those things have really created this perfect storm, and we've had great buy-in. We have great support from sport coaches. We have great support from the administration, literally, the president level down. And so it's been a really, really neat experience for me as a veteran coming to a place like this.
No, that's awesome to hear all the support and kind of just the potential that you guys have, and to see all that kind of unfold daily and then be a part of that process, and for them to be really invested in you, one, to kind of change the position to get you there, and to know that the impact that you can make just from your illustrious career coaching, but also to realize similar to that first salute, there's not many people in the profession that can be put into the role you were in and make that sort of impact that you can around there, because it's just an intangible thing that you've already accomplished that you can't really quantify with anybody else in that position. It like you said, I think it's a perfect storm. So that's awesome to kind of see all the things that you guys are doing, and hopefully continue to make progress moving forward with some of the kind of limitations and everything you were talking about. And you've already talked about some of the changes, your position, first female strength coach, full-time coach, some of the limitations that you have with facilities and everything too, versus some of the main service academies that everybody knows, like Air Force, Naval Academy, West Point. Are there any other unique differences, or are they kind of similar in most aspects, being a senior military college? Are there structured parts of the day where there's nothing going on except class? Are there PT hours and things like that? Or is it a little bit different because those universities are also Division I, so the rules kind of play differently as well? How does it work for you guys?
I think it's pretty similar. I don't know specifically how much, but most of our Corps of Cadets has morning PT. Now, if you're a varsity athlete and you're in season, you get out of morning PT for varsity strength and conditioning, which again, not arguably, is our varsity strength and conditioning program is better than core PT. I can say that without a doubt. So I think our Corps of Cadets know that when they're missing core PT because of varsity lifting, they feel pretty good about it. But it's not a battle, but it's a tug of war, because there is an amount of time they need to be around their company, right? They need to be around those kids, their peers that they're going to be leading or being led by. They need to be involved with that. I get that aspect. And again, maybe being in the military, maybe I'm able to relate to that a little bit better than someone who didn't have that experience would. But typically they'll have that. We have mill lab, it's called, which is a couple days a week in the afternoon. So depending on what's going on, sometimes we lose student athletes to mill lab, which is just military, training with their company. So it could be all different aspects. And then, yeah, I mean, most of the time, again, in season, we've got them pretty well dialed in and we can do what we want. Out of season, it can be a little bit of a kind of back and forth or, doing more here and there. So it really depends. But yeah, you can be in the Corps of Cadets here and not have any sort of military commitment whatsoever. So for those people that don't know how a senior military college differs, you could commission right into the military through an ROTC program or a contract. You could go guards reserves, or you could just do it for that discipline regimental lifestyle. And I would say a fair amount of students do it just for that aspect. So it's pretty neat to see that, again, for me too, being a native Vermonter, I went to basketball camp here every summer when I was growing up. I've stayed in the dorms, which pretty much look the same as they did in the 80s, which I don't know if that helps or hurts too. And then, I've learned we have a functioning ski hill right across the street here on campus that had lifts where I learned how to ski when I was in elementary school. They sold off the lifts in the 90s at some point because they were kind of a liability and upkeep wasn't worth it. But, we've got this great little playground across the street called Payne Mountain, Paine, not pain that we would hope or think in strength and conditioning, but it's awesome. So from an outdoor training perspective, we've got that. We got some, our facilities is pretty small, but we got two of the Beaver Fit 20-foot training lockers. So those are loaded to the gills with equipment. We've got two of those placed last year. One by our football field and one by our baseball field. And, again, our climate isn't South Carolina, which would be nice, but, again, being a senior military college, being the kind of fitness written into our core values, kids are asking me for the keys to that thing at all kinds of different times of the year. And we utilize it with strength and conditioning with our varsity teams as much as possible when we can.
Yeah, it's that's interesting to kind of hear all that stuff. It'd be hard for someone, I think, with no military experience, like to come in and make an impact as quickly as you did, just because you know the ins and outs, you kind of know the vernacular, you know what they're going through in some aspect, even if you didn't go to like a service academy or a military college yourself, like you spent time enlisted in the Navy, so you know like what they're gonna go and do when they go in the fleet or they join big army or they're with their company in the Marine Corps. So it's very different like when you're able to have those conversations with them and then understand kind of the balance that they have to have because you add another pillar to their responsibilities when you join one of these universities and you're going for a commission potentially, and it's you got athletics, academics, and military life, and that's a hard balance to kind of do. And we've seen like some college athletes can't even do two of the three.
Yeah,
You
big
you
time.
you
Yeah.
had another one and you're in trouble. So like you're dealing with very high level, like high driven, high character type A people, but at the
Yeah.
same time, still you got to balance it. What's kind of like your philosophy when it comes to like training in the weight room with them, knowing that at the end of the day, like athletics is a very big part of it. Like you said, fitness is written into the core values of Norwich University, and it's things that they're going to take away when if they join the military as well. Like that is physical education, like health and fitness is important. But at what point in time is like the scoreboard and like success and performance on the field become secondary?
Right. Yeah, my buddy Buck Blackwood at Air Force Academy, he used to tell me, that those guys at Air Force are always just managing a chronic state of overtraining. And like I've seen a degree of that now here. Now it's not with everybody, but yeah, if you're in the Corps and you're doing a specialty unit, and you have a leader position in the core and you're on a varsity athletic team, we're in a chronic state of overtraining at all times. And so a lot of it's how do we manage just figuring out what they've done and how we can implement our training program around that. We've used a little bit of technology to do that. The Lumen Sports app, the guys from Australia that I'm connected with, we use that for wellness check-ins and sleep. It's all self-reported, fatigue, stress, soreness, all the well-being markers, and then self-reported sleep time and sleep scores. And then, we try and look at that Lumen data, and, make adjustments where we can. A lot of it's a daily check-in, seeing how they look, how they feel when you're coming in. And it has been a big time education though. Like overall, I think the biggest thing that I see success in is just they're learning what a good, air quotes, good strengthening and conditioning program should look like. And now they're realizing that maybe all these other excess things that they do, because when they follow your program, right, as is 4 days a week, whatever it is, and they do it just as it's written out, and then they go, man, I'm stronger, I'm not sore, like all these like positive aspects, and all I've been doing was your program, coach. It's like, yeah, it's a shocker how that works sometimes, right? Um, and so when I think I've seen the most payback from it in the kids that are starting to just buy into what we're selling and just follow the program. And now they're seeing the success, and now they're seeing, oh wait, this is this type of training that we're doing, whatever that it is, total body, 3 days a week, I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Like now they're realizing it, oh, okay, well, this type of training does work. Like I didn't have to do XYZ now. So that's been my biggest takeaway. And again, the more that we can get our hooks into those kids, the cadets that'll become MFTs, and obviously, in most of the officers in any branch are going to have some sort of probably oversight or at least some sort of influence in some way, shape, or form over the PT. And so again, the more I can equip them to know what's good or bad, I feel like we're giving them better tools when they become a junior officer out there. So that's been, I think, the biggest kind of light bulbs that I've seen.
Yeah, I think that becomes even more important. I talk about that with my athletes too, like that after 3 or 4 years, however long I have you, I want you at some point in time not to really rely on me. And by the time you're an upperclassman, hopefully we can kind of go back and forth and have a little bit more of a give and take conversation with what you feel like you need in your program, or we can make some changes. But ultimately, I don't want them to go home during the off season and completely have no idea what to do, or have to rely on me and hold their hand. And I think that's even more evident too when you're talking about these cadets that, like you said, are going to be potentially MFTs, or they're going to be in some sort of way supervising PT, even if they're not leading it. At some point in time, they're going to have a say in how it's conducted, and their need to kind of make sure that their company, their unit, their platoon, whatever it is physically ready, and they're maybe deployable at that point in time. So you really need to kind of educate them, and they need to understand it. And I'm sure they're retaining all this stuff, but it's less of what's on the board versus how it's affecting what you're doing and how it impacts holistically. Because I think we know that, like, historically military is kind of grinded out. The more you work, like more miles, more miles, more reps, everything's more. When you can kind of take a step back and teach them, like, hey, maybe sometimes it's more isn't always better. It's it sticks in there sometimes.
Yeah, or even if I can get some of them at least to like not do their leg day, on Sunday in the student gym when I've got them trained. Hey, our main lower body lift day is Monday. So stop. I've told them stop messing up my program by doing legs and Plumley on Sunday. All right. So if nothing else, I've gotten them to do their leg day on a different day, not before our primary leg day, our movement day. So It's a
Step in the
small
right
win.
direction. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
it's a small win. That's what you're looking for. And so this might be kind of a loaded question as well because it's different for every individual coach, and it's also different for people outside the profession or maybe at different universities or where you kind of fall in your level of play or division. But how do you kind of maybe as the department head and as a coach yourself, like really kind of measure the quality of like a successful strength conditioning program? Like what kind of is like your ultimate determinant of or like the important attributes that you would say make your program successful or what you want your athletes eventually to accomplish after they graduate?
Yeah, I mean, I think like you said, having them know how to do how to do a good strength conditioning program and not come out of 4 years and go into a gym and go, I don't know what to do, right? Like that's like hopeful that they're able to do that. I mean, for us too, more being Division 3, it's not always mandatory, right? Lifting, we can't make it mandatory. So when we can get the out of season teams where it's not mandatory to have great compliance and fully bought in and fully showing up and have good weight room culture. And we're still building that with a bunch of teams. Like we're not there yet. We've got a really good core group of teams that are on both the women's and men's side. And again, the more that we've gotten those teams dialed in and looking professional and acting professional in the weight room, um, being committed, understanding, I think too how, attention to detail in the weight room is trickles over to everything, right? It's the same thing as being a military officer. It's the same thing as being a successful student. Like all of how all those things connect together too, I think is where, I feel like that's where we're going to be. That's where success shows up for me when all those light bulbs kind of click at the same time.
I like that. When kind of going through your career, has there been anything that was like super like a defining moment that like solidified like I want to be a coach, kind of like some of your old Navy buddies are saying like, "Oh, I knew you would always do it, but you don't remember that." Like,
Yeah.
was there ever a point in time like over the course of your career where it was just like, this is what I should be doing, like everything kind of got me up to this point? Has that ever clicked at any point in time?
Yeah, I think, I was when I in the kind of middle 2000s, I was working just the commercial fitness centers here in central Vermont, and we had an ABA basketball team that was coming to Vermont, and it was cool. It was like big time written about. The ABA was kind of making a comeback, right? That's the one with the red, white, and blue ball that Dr. J started in back in the day. And they had a few small market teams. So they made this announcement. They're going to have a pro basketball team in Vermont and it was going to play their games in Barrie and Burlington, which was one of the towns that I was living in. And I had reached out to them as soon as I could find contact info about, all right, look, I work at a gym. They say this is going to be their hometown. Like I went to my boss and I said, this needs to be their place. Like we got to make this happen. And of course, like long story short, that this very Vermont like thing that happened, actually a guy that I knew ended up getting the head coaching job. And so it helped solidify the deal that I locked that in. Actually one of my best friends. So like just wild that, and he had been in Norway and I had been sending him programs for his team in Norway for a couple of years. So I was technically a strength coach already. So that was my real first opportunity working with a little higher level, right? And semi-pro basketball it's almost as good as that movie with Will Ferrell, Semi-Pro Makes It. You had guys who were coming out of college that were trying to make it to go make money and play somewhere else, maybe a higher level. Uh, Not necessarily the NBA, but our guys would go overseas for a lot more money. And then you had guys who had been playing for a while, maybe they had some opportunities in the NBA or D League or G League, and now we're just trying to extend their career. So it was this cool, interesting group of young, hungry guys that were trying to extend their career. So that really was the like where I was like, okay, this team sports strength and conditioning coach thing is where it's at now. Now I just got to figure out how to make that happen. And that was after that time, that was when I moved down to Dartmouth, and I was working private sports center, sports performance then too. But the Dartmouth college stuff started snowballing. And then once that really took off and I was working with the three programs, rugby, football, and swimming, that's where I was like, okay, this has to be happening. This is where I want to go with it full time. And the NSCA wasn't exactly that, but it was working in the facility and this overarching, governing body, um, which I knew would lead to other opportunities.
No, that's cool to hear, like just how that team atmosphere, like you got back into it and how it's a small world sometimes, especially when you're in a smaller state too, to be able to just stay connected with everybody.
Yeah.
But I think all those things too, like made you the perfect like NSCA like headquarters, like you said, liaison, because you'd had experience in the private sector, you had experience like working like with some youth athletes and then collegiately and then professional sports and whatever right you want to call it. And then that's what NSCA was trying to do, was to almost bridge the gap and bring all those different entities, all those different division levels and sports kind of under the same encompassing roof for education. And you were able to kind of have those connections and network with people and drive the needle and like move it forward because you could kind of relate to everybody because in some sort of way you had worked that guy's job that you're talking to. Like you've worked with those type of athletes. You've been in that area. How was that experience kind of learning that and getting out of the weight room? Because I think networking sometimes nowadays gets a little bad. Like sometimes as a black eye, people think it's kind of ugly, like the way you're doing it, like you're a roundabout way to try to like look for someone to help you out in the future. But it seems like it's who you know in this profession. So how do you kind of navigate those waters with like when you're talking to younger coaches that are nervous about trying to network or thinking that they're doing it the wrong way or might even literally just be doing it in a bad a bad light?
Yeah, I think for me at NSCA headquarters, I took it as like, here's my chance to try and help as many people as I can, right? So how do I help everybody? Um, and I really didn't even look at opportunities, when I was there until, this opportunity. Well, I went to Colorado College full time in 2019. So, but it took 9 years for me to really start thinking about going outside of the NSCA because I was very content there doing all those different things, wearing all those hats, connecting with people, so I wanted to just really be an ambassador for the organization. And I think just trying to help other people ended up helping me in the long run. And it wasn't intentional like that. But, one thing too, I always told our interns, when you work at the NSCA headquarters, you literally have kind of the open opportunity to reach out to anybody in the profession that you want to, and they're probably going to get back to you, whether that at nsca.com email, or, being able to say that you're there, like you can reach out. And that was something that Mike Barnes, who was there before me, as the education director, he had told me, Scotty, you can, this is and only while you're here, he's like, when you leave, that door closes and you're not that guy anymore. So like you have this opportunity to reach out to anybody while you're here and make those connections and grow relationships and what else. So I think that was an interesting thing to think about, as I was doing it. But for me too, I think it's just it's hard to say, like, I think we could use more, maybe there needs to be more sessions on networking and what that looks like, right? And it's not just asking somebody for a job. And, I mean, back again, we talked about it a lot back in the day. And, Bert Soren talks about burning the gas, but, coaches used to go visit each other a lot more before social media became so prevalent. You couldn't see what people do on a daily basis through Instagram. You had to go and visit them to see that. So I think that was important for me to get out and about and go see people physically while I was there, to make those connections. And I still think that's the best way to do things. That's why I personally love the smaller state and regional events more than the national ones. I mean, I think it's great to have the big names and big events that you can at those national events, but I really love the small ones, and being the state director again has been super fun. To be able to put on kind of our smaller version. We had a combo NSCA Vermont and New Hampshire clinic in October here at Norwich, first time we'd ever hosted anything like that. And we, had a little over 100 people. It was a fantastic event. Already planning the next one. We're gonna hold another combo Vermont New Hampshire clinic on June 1st at Dartmouth this year. So I'm going back to the old stomps. Spencer Brown, director at Dartmouth, was the state director before me, so I'm pumped to be able to do it down there because I have such a fond memory from being at Dartmouth too, that it'll be fun to go back and put on an event there.
No, that's great. I'd agree too. Like I wish I could do this in person because
Yeah, yeah.
this is my favorite thing to do. Even when I go to national conferences, like nothing against anybody, but I want to go find a hole in the wall and see what
Yeah,
coaches are kind of in there and have a few beers and just hang out with them because I think inevitably you'll end up like two people that are passionate about coaching, like in a roundabout way, what you're talking about will get back and veer off track and get to coaching without you having to sit there and talk about X's and O's necessarily.
yeah,
And you can see the lectures, you can do all this. That's why NSCA is really great now too, because you can go watch all this stuff and there's a database of articles and publications and videos and stuff. So I can go watch that stuff later, but I can't have a beer in a hole in the wall bar with Coach Caulfield
right.
if we're both like sitting in the venue. So that's where you'll find me if at any of the events or some of those like small round tables where it's just a bunch of coaches that are grinding it out at a school that people might not really know too lot about except for outside of that hometown, and they've they're doing the best they can and they're doing a great job at it. Just as might not be as big of a notoriety, but they've got creative ways of figuring out how to fundraise, figuring out how to ways to build buy-in, and they have their own small network. And as soon as you open that up, like the possibilities are really endless. And that's my favorite part about kind of going to those things for sure.
Yeah, no, that's why I did all the first few seasons of NSCA podcast that I was in charge of. I tried to do them all in person. I rarely did one on Zoom. I would record them all at our event so that it could be in person because I just had such a better experience doing it. And then obviously after I left, was literally right before the pandemic, and that changed everything as well and has changed how they do things. But I wasn't able to, do as many as you can when you can just do it via Zoom. But the in-person aspect was huge. That was the game changer for me.
Oh yeah, I remember hearing people walk by all the time. You could there's an interview going and it's just the live recording sign and you
Yep.
can hear people in the background kind of like chirping whoever's the guest.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that was fun. If that's what I missed. That's why kind of this got started in the very beginning too, because I missed going to visit like other people's domain and see them coach in person or see um, like how their environment kind of shapes them and what they do in person when I'm actually on the road with a team, like traveling. That this is kind of a small way to be able to do it. And it's not my favorite way, but I know the cool thing is too, after I have these conversations, then I go to a conference and I get to meet someone for the first time in person. That
That's all.
that kind of solidifies it. And I'm cool with that because then it feels like we've known each other for a little bit longer versus that be the first time we met.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
So, hey, with you just mentioned so many different things, and you talk about wearing so many hats. Like, where do you find the time, and how do you kind of, I won't even say balance, like, how do you juggle director of strength conditioning, firefighter, NSCA Vermont state director, like vice president, NSC Foundation, like you have therapy dogs that you take in for places, skiing. I know when season rolls around, training, everything. Like what is like your schedule look like and how do you kind of find opportunities to get these things done that you enjoy and recharge yourself, but also still make sure that the priorities you have in place are still the main objectives?
Yeah, I mean, it sounds like a lot when you look at if you put all those different things and volunteering into the list, put it on a resume, right? It ebbs and flows, right? There's different times of the year that it's busier than others. This is coming up right now. This is a pretty busy time of year. NSCA Foundation, we're doing a lot of assessment of the grants and scholarships applications. We've got an annual meeting coming up in Colorado Springs in April. So it ebbs and flows. I would say the Division 3 um, work-life balance, I think, for me, has proven to be a better opportunity than the higher level at a place like CC was Division 1 and 3, actually. But being here, I think we've got a lot of coaches here too who came from Division 1 backgrounds, and they'll tell you they're here for a reason. Our men's lacrosse coach has his mountain bike in his office every day, if it's not winter. I skied with our men's hockey coach during ski season, which is during hockey season, last year a couple of times. And he brings his skis with him when he goes recruiting at different places. Our head women's hockey coach, I've literally known since she was in high school. She was one of the top D1 assistants in the country, and she came back here because she looked at the opportunities and the expectations, and she wanted to have a family, and she thought that that would be a better opportunity to do that here in Division 3. So we've kind of set up our schedule, like I said, with my full-time assistant. We have morning and night shift basically. So we do have team assignments, but it's not so set in stone. Like I would say, for example, women's ice hockey trains with me the majority of the time throughout the year. And now we'll come back off spring break and they're going to switch into a morning time slot, and they'll train with my assistant the whole time. I won't be at any of those sessions. She'll have them for the rest of the semester. So we kind of have this morning night shift. So all of my coaching hours are done in the afternoon and evening. So I have my mornings. I may do some work. I'll be on computer if there's a meeting that pops up, or just checking emails and answering in the mornings. But really, for the most part, I'm not punching the clock until the afternoon. So that allows me time to get out, get on the mountain. Again, being in Vermont, we have access to, we're easier to access what we need to do, what we want to be outside. They're right here. The mountains are literally, like I said, across the street. So you can get on your mountain bike at lunchtime, you can ski before work, and then still have an opportunity to do all that stuff. Yeah, the therapy dogs have been awesome, game changer. They obviously are in the office every day as well. But they've been a huge asset to the job and to the university, honestly. Like I take them to a retirement home on Wednesdays, so that we were over there this morning. I take them to our campus center so all our students can hang out with them on Fridays at a specific time and place. And then, like I said, they're in the weight room the majority of the time, anytime that I have teams going, or in the office. So people now know that, and will come looking for them. And I think, just also to tag team the NSCA stuff, I hope that I'm showing people that it is a commitment, but it's not as hard as people think to get involved and to be involved. Like there's a lot of opportunities on different committees and different special interest groups to be involved and help make an impact. And it's going to be stuff that you can fit into your schedule. It's not going to be so time consuming that you're not going to have time to do it. So I'm hopeful that I'm able to really still draw some college coaches and professional coaches into that volunteering roles when by wearing the hats that I do. Although I do like to give the NSCA HQ staff a little bit of shit that they really should probably still have some sort of stipend or something I get for all the hats I'm wearing. It hasn't happened yet though. So
Well, we'll forward this to them so that they understand. But no, that's awesome to kind of hear. And like I know I've played and coached at the D3 level too, and it's different. But I think to your point too, a lot of people don't realize, like, I think the two main things you said were opportunities and expectations. Like it's not to say it's a lower division, like it's lesser of athletes or it's lesser of like a competitive atmosphere. It's just, I think things are put into perspective a little bit more, and there is a truer balance where you can do both things. And if that's really what you want to, the level you want to play at, the level you want to coach at, the like, if like you have family priorities and things like that, there are a lot of opportunities. And the same goes with NSCA. I've been in a council member on NSCA's like strongman special interest group for the last 3 years. And yeah, there's a balance to it, but I think there's a lot more benefit there is, and you're able to kind of fit times in there where you're working on it and kind of chipping away. And I think maybe those roles eventually like advance to where they're like bigger jobs, and then maybe they're not as voluntary. But for right now, like there definitely are plenty of opportunities to get involved in the organization if that's what you want to do. And at the state level too, I haven't done that yet, but definitely something I'm considering at some point in time.
Yeah, and I mean, there's benefits too. Like, I don't want people to think, that it's just you are giving, giving, giving. As a state director, you get, I think you get national conference paid for and 2 nights a hotel, and depending on your roles with special interest groups, if they're a professional development group, as the new term they're using, there's some again, benefits as a council member to that, state director, regional director, different committees and different, being on the foundation board now. There's all kinds of different little perks here and there that you get out of it, and that can make it, especially at a Division 3 level where we don't have the budgetary resources to travel and to do all these events. It's been huge. Like, my athletic director loves the involvement with the NSCA, because he's like, you're putting Norwich on the map, like these people you're getting in front of. A lot of these people have never heard of us, and now people know where we are and know another whole level of what we do. So they are super supportive when I'm like, hey, in December, I missed an entire week of work towards the end of the semester to go out and help with a photo shoot at HQ. But my boss was like, absolutely, like, you got, like, that's a no-brainer. So it's just cool when stuff like that comes up in the middle of the semester to have that support as well.
Yeah, and that again comes back to into play of sometimes you have to get out of the weight room again to like make a bigger impact. Because to be quite honest, like I didn't do ROTC, I went to OCS, and I stayed in some good old World War II barracks that were definitely bomb proof. I think so, and they were old school. But I didn't know really about Norwich until you arrived there. Like I'd probably seen it in passing, but like I never put like the two together until you got there. And like you've made a big impact on it, and it goes to show like sometimes you have to kind of get outside your zip code. You kind of have to get outside of the weight room walls and bring a little notoriety back to your university, or bring it back to your staff. And I think it goes into play too, like by helping others, like you help yourself in some way, the same as you said. So by going out and to kind of do these events, you maybe directly, indirectly help Norwich, and that globally helps everything. Kind of rising tides raise all ships. So it's awesome to kind of have the backing and support too from your athletic director to say, yeah, go out and do these things. Like this has a greater effect in the long run than you maybe missing 1 or 2 sessions here. We can cover that, because like the long-term payoff is greater than just you got to guard your desk.
Right, right, right. No, yeah, I have a lot of autonomy, which I'm super grateful for, and thankful for. And, it's one of those things I think at a point now where I have a lot of those other hats, to where it's probably most beneficial to have that level of autonomy. And at this point in my career, it can also be tough too, though, when you need more support, or you want more support, and you have to like go tracking it down a little bit more than you used to.
Right.
Yeah.
It's maybe not a bit as big of a check. You kind of have to go get the person to sign it right in front of you
Yeah.
just to make sure it gets deposited. Hey, but
Yeah.
I wanted to kind of circle back to what we really got started with too, and how you got involved in like training and everything. So what has your training kind of evolved into nowadays? I know you got, like you said, you got the mountains basically out your back door, and when the slopes are good, you're out skiing. But why do you feel like it's important for you to still train? Like, do you still kind of have that same passion for training, and what does it kind of look like nowadays? It's probably different from when you were on a ship, like just getting started, or in college, just getting started.
Yeah, it's definitely different. I would say now I'm training to feel better and move better and ski most of the time. I tore my Achilles uh practicing with Colorado College men's basketball team during the pandemic. After we got out of the pandemic, we were still trying to keep 5-on-5, getting them ready. They had guys in quarantine, so I was playing 10th man, all-time offense, and third practice I tore my Achilles. That was a terrible injury. I've got a right ankle from 25 years of playing basketball on pavement that's like a 3 out of 5, apparently on an arthritis scale. Bone on bone, there's really nothing you could do about it. I'm looking for the ankle replacement to come into being a thing someday. So I have to train around a lot. I have a home gym set up with a bunch of kettlebells and some other auxiliary stuff. I would say, as much as I hate the word, my training is much more functional. But it's functional to do what I want to do, which is mountain bike and ski. Skiing, the type of skiing that I do too, we call it touring or skinning, where you walk up and then ski down. Actually feels great because of the ski boot locks my ankle in place. It doesn't bother my ankle nearly at all. So skiing's been great and just working around the injuries. But I also like to be able to, I always joke that you never trust a skinny chef. So, I kind of need to keep my credibility, especially at a senior military college where, we have egos and people are going to check you. So, I have to jump in every now and then and on a testing day and hit some number in the high teens of pull-ups just to keep my credibility. We've been doing some different push-up challenges with different teams as finishers that I'll jump in on. So, it's very different. I definitely don't lift as heavy consistently that I used to. Um, I follow a couple. I've got a multitude of different training apps at my hand, or Bolt Athletics that we use, but I really like a couple kettlebell programs that I've found, and kettlebells have been much more useful, I feel like, with at my age now. I'm 53 this year, gonna be 54 in October. And the dings and things I'm working around physically, the kind of flexibility and fluidity, I guess, of kettlebell training for me is where I'm finding the most benefit and just interest in it. So it's something different that I can try and, get good at again. It's helping me kind of feel athletic still to some degree, even though most days I don't feel very athletic.
Yeah, it's kind of a nice way to like grease the groove. And like you said, if it's something new, you can still feel pretty athletic doing that, throwing it around versus coming down and some 18-year-old kid bumping you off of a block and then just landing on hardwood. I think I'd take kettlebell swings and some windmill presses over that any day. But
Yeah.
no, that's great. By the way, do you have anything kind of in place, or is it more structured through like the Commandant going down, like a kind of Norwich University, like universal, like PT test or standard? Because they could go in any direction, and all the branches of the military are slightly different with how their standards for PT tests are. Do you guys have anything in place? Maybe is that something maybe in the works, or is that
The
coming down
core,
from them?
yeah, our Corps of Cadets PT test was pretty standard: 2-mile run, 2-minute push up, 2-minute sit up. That's basically the basic Norwich Corps of Cadets PT. Trying to evolve that a little. Obviously the ROTCs all have specific branch specific PT tests like ACFT. So again, Norwich PT test is the one that most of the kids have to prepare for, though, especially just showing up. And that's just the 2-2-2, 2-mile, 2-minute, 2-minute. So, I'll try and advise on that. I could see that hopefully, I think if this role continues to evolve, I think it could evolve into something where an overarching position where I oversee with the adequate support, the Corps of Cadets and the training side as well. All that I do for that side right now is really volunteer and helping on the side here and there. But I could see that becoming part of my main job and have support both on the core side and athletic side with assistant coaches, athletic trainers. That's something we need desperately is an athletic trainer for the core side. Multiple, honestly. So it's again, education and training and kind of, educating and leading up the chain a little too, to really show them the benefit of why these positions will make such a big difference. Recruitment and retention are the two buzzwords that probably every college is familiar with, but we hear them a lot. And I think about retaining obviously means not getting kids hurt the first week that they show up for school doing Army PT, or tearing your ACL, God forbid, in PT, which happens all way more than it should. Yeah, that's a whole nother podcast episode.
Oh, for sure. And I mean, like we said, it's hard to kind of change big military like installations or kind of some of the history and tradition that comes into it because there's a reason why the military is what it is too, and it's built on those traditions and kind of legacy. So it's difficult to kind of educate people and make those changes. And also at the same time, like you don't know what you don't know, and like you're talking to individuals that went through it themselves that way, and look where they are. Like I'm the commandant here. I'm an E9, like fully vested and retired. Well, what are you going to tell me? It worked perfectly fine. What do you mean it doesn't work for the next group of cadets? So it's it's
No,
definitely a tough job.
yeah, one of our company mentors is a retired Master Chief E9 SEAL, and he's probably the biggest proponent I have for they need to not do these stupid workouts. They're training too hard. They need to understand progression. Like he's my biggest supporter uh, as one of the company mentors, and he's coming from, Naval Special Warfare as a Master Chief. So it's kind of cool when you have support like that too. Like we've got to get these hooks into them soon. So, to have that support from that side is really cool.
No, that's great. That's awesome, coach. Hey, well, like any good training session, coach, we end the show with a finisher. So I got 4 quarters, 4 questions, and overtime for you at the end. So
Nice.
you can go rapid fire or you can expand on any of them, but you ready?
Okay, let's do it.
All right, first one I got for you. Biggest influence in the strength conditioning profession and favorite athlete growing up.
Uh, Favorite athlete's easy because I grew up in the late 80s and played basketball. So MJ was it. Hands down, no competition. He'll always be, it never will. But I would say influence, I mean, honestly, my mom was a basketball coach, and so I got dragged to the gym before I even knew what anything was and just saw coaching from basketball side at an early age. So like obviously that planted the seed. Professionally though, Lauren Landau, who's at Notre Dame now, when I was at NSCA was such a huge influence. I did a mentorship with him and Joe Ken, who I mentioned, who have, we've actually just through the course of what I did at NSCA and connecting with him in different roles and different times, we've become really good friends. And like he's a huge influence in many aspects of training, and has came up here in October and spoke at my clinic that we had, stayed at my house with me. I made him hike the mountain across the street. So like we've just had it become a really cool relationship that I never would have imagined, being this kid from Vermont that, went out to do that stuff would have happened. So super cool.
Awesome. Hey, so we kind of already talked about a few of these things since you're wearing so many hats, but when you're not in the weight room and you're not kind of coaching, what are some of your hobbies maybe you haven't mentioned, or maybe if there's like a hidden talent of yours or something that you haven't talked about yet?
Gosh, I don't think I have any hidden talents. No, most of it revolves around skiing, mountain biking. Now, my girlfriend's son is 12, so we got a lot of hoop and lacrosse that we do nowadays on the side. So being able to get him to games and watch him play and trying to get him a little interested in working out, which is starting to take shape, has been awesome. So but being outside really that helped getting reconnected or getting connected in nature really charges my batteries. So that's the big one. If we can do something outside, whatever it might be. Yeah, I'm looking for some new hobbies. I'm trying to think of what I want to get into next, though. I definitely need something, a new challenge.
Your schedule's full up. I don't know. I don't know. Hey, if you weren't coaching like in the strength and conditioning profession, I know you've already had other past careers as well. Um, but what do you think you would be doing right now if coaching wasn't an option?
Yeah, I will. On a side note, I would have maybe basketball. I think I would have been a basketball coach if, but aside from that, I would have been a firefighter. When I got out of the Navy, that was what I became. I started in the volunteer firefighter role right out of the Navy, and then that would have hopefully transpired into a full-time gig if strength and conditioning hadn't taken over. So I think that's an easy one. I definitely was passionate about it and had enough experience in the military that that would have been a good career choice for me. But I could have just as easily went into basketball, I think, as strength and conditioning. So
All
could be
right.
interesting.
Hey, so I know it's spring break right over there. So if you got some time in the world and it's an ideal training day for yourself, what's playing through the speakers and what is that your best post training meal look like right after that lift?
Oh, well, music wise is definitely either Notorious B.I.G. or, if we're going rock, it's AC/DC, definitely stay true to my late 80s roots. That's real hip hop. Training meal wise, oh man, anything good. Tacos, I'm a big fan of I like dining hall food. I don't mind going to our dining hall every now and then. We just had Taco Tuesday yesterday, but can't go wrong with hamburgers either. I'm a pretty big fan. A cheeseburger goes a long way.
There you go. Hey, so last one I got for you for overtime. What would you say is kind of the biggest thing that motivates you or drives you to continue doing what you're doing and be involved as a strength coach?
Yeah, I mean, I think relationships, right? The interaction with all of the athletes on a regular basis and just building relationships with people. And again, especially being at a senior military college now, knowing that a lot of these people are going to become military officers and be in leadership positions, and knowing the impact those people are going to have on how many people that they're going to have an impact really, really charges me up. It gives me another level um, of commitment, another level of, why I do it. But, overall, I think it really is the connection with people and supporting other people and helping them reach their goals, as we say all the time. But really just one of my old mentors again said everything we do is about results and relationships. And so again, I think that's part of it. It's building a relationship, but it's seeing that you can have this positive effect on people in all those different ways that we've talked about throughout the show and how it transpires in different people.
No, I love that. That's a great like results and relationships is a great way to put it. And those things are very important. And you're in a very unique position, kind of working with athletes, like current student athletes that are going to be future leaders, whether they decide to take their commission and join the military for whatever length of time it is, whether it be the Guard, Reserves, or active duty. They're also going to be leaders in business and financial and other aspects. And I think it goes to show kind of the same as the NSCA and everything, like you stepping outside and you working with other people in like impacts everybody. And it's cool to see that with these student athletes who might come back and work for you one day, or
Right, right.
you never know what's going to happen. So no, that's awesome, Coach. Well, hey, for anybody that's got any follow-up questions for you, want to follow along with what you guys got going on at Norwich, or see some of your skiing adventures and training habits, where can they get a hold of you?
Yeah, I tell anybody, if you like bikes, skiing, dogs, and gyms, you'll probably like my Instagram. So at Coach Caulfield is my Instagram page, and at Norwich SC is our department strength and conditioning page. Alfie the Mini has her own. So I'm also a social media manager, managing those pages. But yeah, those are the main three. I do have a website, coachcaulfield.com. I try and put some info on there. I don't do a great job of that, but I try and update the blog here and there. And I'll put any events that I might be doing on there. I'm gonna be down at the Mass NSCA State Clinic on the 23rd of March, coming up here in a couple weeks. And then yeah, I'll probably be at NSCA National, and then we're gonna do Vermont, New Hampshire again June 1st at Dartmouth College. So hopefully we'll see some people there.
Awesome, Coach. Well, yeah, we'll link everything in there. We'll give you a pass on the blogs for the website. Like you said, you got so many things going on. You got a full schedule. So I appreciate you taking the time out of your spring break a little bit to come on the show and kind of share with the audience. It's been awesome to get a hold of you and talk to you more about everything you've got going on.
Yeah, no, thanks for keeping on me about getting this scheduled. I appreciate it.
No, it was well worth it, Coach. I appreciate it, and we'll talk very soon.
All right, thanks.
That's it for this episode of The Strength Game. Thank you again to this week's guest and to our sponsors. Be sure to connect and keep up with our guests at the links in the description below. Remember to subscribe to us on Apple and Google Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast provider to stay up to date on all future episodes. Also, check us out on YouTube and CoachO'Brien.com, where you can find all the video versions of these episodes, as well as show notes, episode schedule, and much more. Comments, ratings, and reviews are always welcome and appreciated. Thanks again for tuning in, and be sure to join us next week for another great episode of The Strength Game.